Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow. Today's going to be amazing. I'm getting fired up because, you know what, I really hate when I do this or when anyone does this because you don't really care. You just want to be entertained. You want a good show. You want your thoughts provoked. But I just want to warn you, I'm playing hurt today. I'm playing hurt. You know, flu-like symptoms or I'm playing hurt. But we're going to have a great show. A show worthy of a 5-star review on Apple. If you're listening over Apple, give me that 5-star review. Help us fight the algorithm. A show that is worthy of you visiting fearlessmission.com and becoming a subscriber to everything we're doing here at Blaze TV. Use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. You'll save $20 on your annual Blaze subscription. Guys, I know some of you aren't into politics and you're just here for the sports stuff, but I need you to go that extra mile and support everything we do here at the Blaze because it's why I get to do what I'm about to do today, what I try to do every day, is give you the most raw, honest, provocative, informative, insightful take on the sports world. And we're going to do it once again today, despite me, playing a tiny bit hurt. I want to start off by thanking our primary sponsor, my favorite sponsor, Preborn. Preborn is the organization that is near and dear to my heart and our heart and anybody that's a part of the Fearless movement because Preborn believes life begins at conception, and so do we, and so does God. And so Preborn provides expectant mothers who are considering an abortion. They provide them an ultrasound. They introduce that baby's heartbeat and an image of the baby to the mother while the baby's in the womb. That mother that was considering aborting the child, more than half of the women now understand, like, man, I got God's greatest gift growing inside of me, and they choose life. Once they choose life, Preborn then steps in, steps up, supports that woman and child for up to 2 years, and they do it because we, you and me, we donate to Preborn. It's $28 for every ultrasound. 5 ultrasounds are $140. Whatever your best gift is, give it today, whether it's $28, whether it's $280, $140. Give it today by dialing pound 250, say the keyword baby, that's pound 250, keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. And today's show will be another example why we should be thankful and we should be looking for ways to honor God and thank God, and Preborn's a great way to do it. But today's show, today's message, today's point that I'm hammering is a powerful, uplifting, it's a reason for us to have joy and to have optimism. And I'm going to circle back to our topic from yesterday and put some more meat on those bones from yesterday about Kid Rock and TPUSA and the Super Bowl halftime, because I believe today the ratings will come out. That's all the speculation for the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl halftime. And I feel everything that I've been able to research and find tells me we're going to have good news with these television ratings. And we're going to have a David versus Goliath type situation where Kid Rock and Kids Rock is like that stone that David slung at Goliath and that slayed Goliath. And I believe that Kid Rock and Turning Point USA, they slung a rock at Goliath, the National Football League. And it landed and it struck very hard. And there are people sitting out there rooting and hoping. They're rooting for the Philistines. They're rooting for Goliath. They're rooting for the wicked people. and that's the National Football League. The National Football League has chosen wickedness, and Kid Rock in that halftime show is going to be that rock that humbles the National Football League and sends a message to all of sports that fans are owed respect. Everything about the sports world over the last 20, 30, maybe even 40 years has been a disrespect and an assault on fans. And finally, we had enough, and TPUSA and from Erica Kirk to Andrew Colvett to Tyler Boyer to, Grant or Brant Neff, they finally heard our voices and took action. Jack Posobiec, they finally took action. And this is an event, what I'm calling Kids Rock, what I'm calling the Super Bowl halftime show that TPUSA executed and pulled off to great success. I'm calling that, and this will sound way over the top, but it's the most important moment in sports since Jackie Robinson. And I sincerely believe that. And when I say Jackie Robinson, I'm talking about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. And I know the racial idolaters right now are going nuts. How you can't compare anything to Jackie Robinson? Whitlock is nuts. What a sellout. Yes, I'm going, and I know it's high risk what I'm saying, what I'm doing. And I really don't care I do care, but the ratings won't tell the full story. And they may be able to manipulate the ratings, although I don't think so. That game was awful. That halftime was awful. The numbers that TPUSA pulled off were legitimate and real. And so I think over in the next 24 hours, we're going to hear about a 5, 10, 15% drop in Super Bowl ratings. And that is monumental. The NFL and sports have become so arrogant that they thought they were untouchable. And finally, we touched them through Kid Rock, through this TPUSA Super Bowl halftime. And I know many, Kid Rock, and he's a degenerate. His lyrics are just as bad as Bad Bunny, and miss me with all of that. And yes, I know you don't like, or some of you don't like, or some of you on the left are pretending you don't like Kid Rock. You don't like the messenger. And you think that gives you license to ignore the message. You're wrong. God chooses screwed up messengers every single time because we're all screwed up. And I hear you. God choosing Kid Rock. Whitlock is crazy. This is just like Trump. These guys are evil. And God chooses messed up people every single time to do his will. I'm messed up. Any of you listening to this show, watching this show right now, and me sitting here professing any part of the gospel, me sitting here, supporting or praising Jesus Christ, trust me, I'm the wrong messenger. I'm as screwed up as anybody watching this show, listening to this show, or whatever. But I've been chosen. We've all been chosen to help execute the Great Commission. We've all been chosen to push back against the forces of iniquity and power and corruption and just the arrogant people that pollute our culture with corruption, with degeneracy. And yes, you're saying, well, that's Kid Rock. Haven't you listened to his music? Yeah, I listened on Sunday, and I heard something completely different. I heard a man singing Till You Can't, and I heard a man that put a biblical spin on that song, and I heard a man that participated in something high risk that could have been embarrassing. The Kid Rock's made millions upon millions of dollars. He's got all the popularity in the world. He didn't need to involve himself with the TPUSA event. It could have been a flop. He could have been a laughingstock. He could have taken that halftime platform that TPUSA built, and he could have spewed a bunch of political rhetoric. He could have cursed out the left and done what Kid Rock tends to do a lot of times, but he didn't do that. He stuck to the music. He stuck to a consistent message. He through his music, he walked you through his journey, his maturity, his growth, his realization that, like, man, all this money and all this fame, it's not worth it if I don't use it to somehow to glorify God and somehow speak truth to the powerful forces that are taking advantage of the common man, taking advantage of the sports fan. This was it was a miracle. And I know many of you, again, will reject that and laugh at me and say that Whitlock's gone crazy and he's making too much of this. But this is why Jackie Robinson and breaking the color barrier in baseball and in sports changed American culture. And I believe this Super Bowl halftime deal is going to have long-lasting impact and is going to change part of American culture. This will play out over the next 5, 10, 15 years. But what TPUSA and what Kid Rock pulled off is going to inspire others. There have been too many sports fans and just modern Americans who believe we are powerless against the people, against the forces that are spreading Marxism, that are spreading demonic energy, that are promoting the whole LGBTQIA plus silent P movement, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. I know I have felt for a solid 10 years, like, hey man, there's nothing we can do. And Kid Rock and TPUSA just proved, no different than Donald Trump's re-election the second time and the first time, were proof that, like, hey man, you don't have to take this. Therefore, yes, their forces are powerful. Yes, they control the banking institutions. Yes, they control money. Yes, they control the zeitgeist. Yes, they control the American media. Yes, they control movies and music. And yes, they control the World Economic Forum. They're the ones imposing globalism. Yes, the leftists, in terms of everything that's going on in Minnesota and the illegal immigration. Yes, they've opened our borders. But part of that has been, the reason why they've had so much control is because we have been afraid to legitimately fight back and push back. And so just like Donald Trump and what he pulled off in 2016, getting elected, and then proved again in 2024 by getting reelected, despite all the forces trying to put him in jail, trying to silence him, trying to incarcerate him, trying to kill Donald Trump. Well, now we have our example in the sports world. And this is a domain and a landscape that I know well. And it has been out of control and an utter failure and totally disrespectful to sports fans for far too long. Calling this kids rock. It slayed the National Football League. And for those of you that don't fully understand, like, if these Super Bowl ratings drop by 3%, 5%, 7%, Lord knows if it drops by double digits, that will be a shot heard round the world. That will be something that makes Roger Goodell and the NFL think twice before pissing on sports fans again. And that's what they've been doing. But this is across the board in all sports. And this what Kid Rock and TPUSA just pulled off, if it will be heard in the NBA, it will be heard in Major League Baseball, a lot of this woke garbage will stop on a dime if these ratings do what I think they're going to do to the Super Bowl. Everybody thought, and certainly the NFL and Roger Goodell and Jay-Z and all the forces behind the NFL, they all thought the NFL was bulletproof, that it couldn't be touched. And here's some 50-some-odd-year-old rocker that touched them with his slingshot. He rocked the NFL. All because TPUSA had the courage to risk embarrassment when others didn't. Because trust me, I talked with others. As soon as we heard that Bad Bunny was during the Super Bowl, I started talking to people behind the scenes, and many of them afraid to take the risk. Many of them, their egos too involved. Well, we got to do it in a stadium. We got to do it here. There's got to be X number of people. And I was like, no, that's not what needs to happen. All you need to do is do it. Small arena, small venue, make the sound quality good enough. Trust me, the timing is right. People have had enough. And TPUSA took on that challenge. And I just want to say hats off to them. And I want to say directly to people that, I have been supportive of and remain supportive of. But I would tell them to back up Candace Owens. Again, I've been supportive of Candace Owens. But she needs to stop as it relates to this event. And remember yesterday when I walked you through like, hey, man, you can get so caught up in hate that it will cause you to love the wrong thing. And I get and understand Candace Owens having a problem with TPUSA. Don't have a problem with that. But if it blinds you to what TPUSA just pulled off, if your initial reaction to what Kid Rock and TPUSA just did, if your initial reaction, well, they must have faked the YouTube numbers. How can that be your reaction? It's just wrong and inappropriate. And I say this respectfully, Candace and the people that support Candace. You've missed the forest from the trees. You have a famous rock and roller that took a huge chance, got a platform, and proclaimed Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior Super Bowl Sunday in front of millions of people. And so once that transpired, it's a wrap for criticism. Super Bowl Sunday, one of the most secular, or maybe the most secular cultural event we have every year. And we've watched them from Beyonce to Kendrick Lamar to Dr. Dre to Snoop Dogg. They gather up 120, 130 million people here in America and put on the most secular and demonic performance they possibly can. Every year. It's slapping Christians and believers in the face every year. And Kid Rock does an event that goes completely counter to that and proclaims Jesus Christ. Hey, man, I'm not a fan of Erica Kirk as CEO of TPUSA. I get it. But facts are facts. When she does something right, when she does something this positive, when she does something this high risk, and it was high risk, all I can do is applaud. You can't get so caught up in, hey, I don't like this person or that person, or I'm bickering with this person and that person, that I can't see the bigger picture and the positive that's going on here. And again, maybe it's because I understand the importance of the sports world in a way that others don't. But they have been controlling American culture through sports. It's the Super Bowl and the NFL. It's the only platform, it's the only content that draws massive numbers of people so that you can communicate a message to them in a massive way. There used to be, and again, some of you, maybe Candace isn't old enough to remember this, but there used to be a lot of TV shows that would draw massive numbers of viewers. And you could communicate a message through MASH, the TV show, or Laverne and Shirley, or whatever TV show, when there was only 3 or 4 networks and channels on a TV. You draw massive amounts of people, and it wasn't just sports. But now in this society, sports are the only way to communicate a major message to a massive, diverse amount of American people. And that thing in the sports world has been weaponized to promote an anti-Christian message. That's why they have all the Marxist slogans and stuff on NFL fields. That's why all the players put all these Marxist slogans on the back of their helmet. That's why they support Black Lives Matter. That's why they believe Colin Kaepernick is some sort of hero. That's why in the NBA, LeBron James and the globalists over there, they're promoted as some sort of hero. That's why they start the WNBA just as a tool and dump billions of dollars into the WNBA just to use it as a tool to promote feminism. And so when Kid Rock, Robert Richie, and these guys stand up and use and turn the tables on the sports world and promote a message of positivity towards a Christian worldview. And this was all of these guys. This was laced throughout the entire 40-minute halftime deal that they did. You got to hat tip these people. Let the leftists second guess and lie about what transpired. Again, I believe in questioning any and everything. I got no problem with questioning people about Charlie Kirk's assassination. But don't let that blind you to the fact that TPUSA just pulled off something incredible. And you may say, well, they're flawed. They did this. It's the whole as I said at the very beginning of this, God uses nothing but flawed people and flawed institutions and flawed organizations. The church is flawed. And so we can't get blinded. Something great and significant happened here. Something inspiring happened here. This is, in my view, a historic moment where now all the little pirate independent journalists, that they like, hey man, there's something we can do. We can push back. We can fight back, and we can have success, and it won't destroy us. Hats off to Kid Rock. What's the woman's name? Gabby Barrett, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Bryce. Hats off. Andrew Colvett, Jack Pasabic, Tyler Boyer, Erica Kirk, all the little people at TPUSA that I don't know their names. Hats off. Job well done. You just slung a rock and knocked over Roger Goodell and the NFL, a force that is being used to brainwash. And did you watch like the messaging of their entire halftime. Hey, America, you're not special. It's the Americas. It's all these other countries. And we're all just one big deal. There are no borders. That was the messaging of Bad Bunny. All the people you've defined as illegal aliens, we're not illegal. We have a right to come into your country, not respect your language, not respect your customs, not respect your culture, and come over here and take advantage of your system and reimagine American culture. And to come on at halftime, piggybacking off of all the rappers that Jay-Z has been platforming every Super Bowl, and come down and come over here with Bad Bunny and say, look, the Latinos, the Puerto Ricans, all of the rest of the Americas, our culture is hypersexualized, degenerate, and beautiful, and it's what your kids should be into it. And if you're not into our hypersexualized, hyper-degenerate culture, you're racist. Thank you, Kid Rock, for slapping them in the face and slapping back, and for inspiring others to do the same. Wanted to get that off my chest today. We got a guest that I'm looking forward to, a guy I used to work with on my Speak for Yourself show at FS1, former NFL star, guy that was misunderstood for a long time during his NFL career, but one of the smartest guys I ever talked to that's a former NFL player. Really, really smart, really, really bold. Richie Incognito is going to join us. Next! JB, there's been a study released out of, I think it's Harvard. I want you to marinate on this, but this is their study. I had nothing to do with this. That hating Fernando Mendoza is one of the number one indicators of gayness. And so when we come back, I'm going to ask you about it. Next. Welcome back to the show. Do you care to comment on the Harvard study?
I would assume that they must have had it skewed, that you're gay if you do agree with his takes. Let me ask you something. Are you on the Smitty thing that the crybaby head coach now is the new trend, and that's right there with Fernando Mendoza and everything else that's gay in America? Are you with that? Crybaby head coach is the new trend. Josh Allen is a quarterback. He starts crying, and you get the little boys to start crying in his jersey, and then you get Fernando Mendoza to start crying.
All right, welcome back. Before we get to Richie Incognito, let me tell you about one of our newest sponsors, Select Quote. It's important to have a good defense in both sports and life. Then Select Quote is how you can shop and save. Holy cow! I'm sorry, I just had a brain fart. I got to do this over again. Select Quote. You've heard the saying, the best offense is a good defense. Scroll up. You've heard the saying, scroll up the other direction. You've heard the saying, the best offense is a good defense a million times, but these words of wisdom extend far beyond sports. In life, the best defense is making sure to get the right life insurance policy for you. That's why I use Select Quote to get the best coverage for me or my Game Pass subscription. If you're new to life insurance, you're not alone. Thankfully, I found Select Quote. For more than 40 years, Select Quote has helped me and more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. Over $700 billion in coverage and counting. As a broker, their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price. SelectQuote takes the guesswork out of finding the right life insurance policy. You don't have to sort through dozens of confusing options on your own. Instead, one of their licensed agents will find the right policy at the right price for you, comparing plans from trusted, top-rated insurance companies to find a policy that fits your health, your lifestyle, and your budget, and they work for you for free. You'll be covered faster than you think. SelectQuote works with providers who offer same-day coverage up to $2 million worth with no medical exam required, and you're not out of luck if you have a pre-existing health condition, because SelectQuote partners with companies that offer policies for people with conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. SelectQuote makes life insurance simple. Even if this is your first time thinking about it, head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/fearless. That's SelectQuote.com/fearless. They shop, you save. Richie Incognito.
Man,
how are you?
I'm doing well.
Welcome to Fearless. Richie, where are you living at now?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I spend most of my time down in Scottsdale, Arizona. Spend the summers out in Los Angeles, and I get down to Cabo quite a bit. I got a house down there. I go down and play golf a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like you're headed to the golf course as soon as we're done here. Richie, let's start with the Super Bowl. What happened to the Patriots offensive line? What happened to Will Campbell?
Man, they fell apart. They really got dominated. They had a rough day, and that's been pretty much what's been happening to them throughout the playoffs. You know, they played the top defenses 1, 2, 5, and those guys got handled up front. Will Campbell struggled. The guy next to him, the other rookie, they struggled. You know, it's one of those things where Seattle caught a bead on what they were trying to do, and I read that Witherspoon that said that they had a tell on what the offensive line was doing. And once you give up those type of things to a superior defense like that, you know, it's really tough to overcome. And what I saw with the rookie left guard and Will Campbell out on the edges, everybody wants to talk about Will Campbell's long, short arms. And I think for Will Campbell, it has to do with his base. You look at young tackles and you want to look at their base to see if they can kick back to the spot. We got to get back to an intercept point and then start the fight with our feet and hands. With Will Campbell, I just don't think he can get back to the spot. I think it's a lower body issue. So when you see him, he sets out there and he automatically turns. And when you turn yourself to a defensive lineman, you're giving him a three-way go. You're giving him the inside move, you're giving him the bull rush, and then you're giving him a short corner. And what we saw with Will Campbell was he was turning, and you're exposing your chest to those defensive linemen, and they were just picking him up and throwing him at Drake May. So it was an issue that really came up in the playoffs when they started playing better defenses, and it was on full display in the Super Bowl this weekend.
Is what you're talking about, is that fixable? Can that be coached out of him, or does he need to perhaps move inside?
You know, I think they have to seriously consider moving him inside. He's the type of guy where you move him inside to guard and you don't have to worry about him ever again. Now, he is a young kid. He is a rookie. He started every game out there at left tackle. And for a rookie to do that, it's really tough. You know, you're really getting thrown into the deep end of the pool. I think he's a smart kid. He works hard. He's got to get with some really top level coaches. You know, Dante Scarnecchia would be great. If I was him, I'd be calling him up and saying, hey, you got to fix my pass sets. I think, you know, let him get the work in, see how he looks in the spring. And if we get to training camp and we're having the same issues, we got to slide him inside to left guard. He'll be your starting left guard for the next decade.
Why, and you played inside, center, and guard in the NFL, why are pass sets different in the inside, in the guard and center area as opposed to the offensive tackle?
Yeah, much different. When you're out at offensive tackle, you're playing basketball. You're setting back to a spot. You're dealing with lighter guys, so you're worried about speed. So you're setting back to a spot, and you know the fight starts a lot later at guard. At guard, everything is right now. That big three technique is on you. Those guys are power rushers. They're not going to give you many counter moves. So for a guy like Will Campbell, he could take a nice tight set, and his short arms really don't matter because that fight is starting now. out at tackle, you got to be a little taller, you got to be a little leaner, you got to be a little more nimble on those feet and be able to get back to that intercept point, be able to get back there, start the fight, and then mirror these guys. Inside, you're dealing with bigger bodies, you're dealing with less pass rush moves unless you get a guy like Aaron Donald. But yeah, things happen quicker. Things happen now, and we're not asking him to kick back so far. And as we're not asking him to kick back so far, he's not going to turn as much. So putting him in the inside, you're kind of, you're not hiding him, but you're covering up for the deficiencies.
I just don't understand why the Patriots, it seems so obvious what you're talking about. I don't understand, but look, like you said, they got away with it all throughout the regular season. So what, why wouldn't you think? Richie, I want to ask you this: as someone that was known as one of the more physical, nasty players in the NFL, does the softness of the NFL, does that bother you?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I talk a lot about it on my show that the game has changed. Obviously, the game has changed, and I won't say it's changed for the worse, but it's definitely got a little bit softer. And you can look at the major injuries. I don't think the guys are spending enough time in the offseason working on their bodies. I don't think they get enough practice reps in the spring. I don't think they get enough time in the weight room. I don't think they get enough time in training camp. When we used to report for training camp, we would do 2 weeks of two-a-days before we would get our first day off. Now, these guys are getting as many practices and pads before they're in the entire preseason than we got in the first 2 weeks of camp. So, the muscles need to be calloused. The joint capsules need to be calloused. Your shoulders, your legs, your tendons, you can only grow that callus by playing football. And now you watch offensive line play up front. It's an epidemic. I think it's a lost art on how to teach it. It's a lost art on how to play it. I think a lot of coaches, you can look at the Las Vegas Raiders this year as a shining example. Pete Carroll thought he could bring in his son, Nate Carroll, and he can coach the O-line. He's had very limited experience. He's coached in college, but coming up to the professional level, it takes a certain level of detail to coach these kids up, to teach these kids how to play. And you see the really good offensive lines playing with good pad level, taking up the line of scrimmage, pushing guys back. And then you see the more than half of the NFL where these guys are just getting shoved around. Everything is a little bit softer. These guys want to get up high and grab and twist. And these are all the things, the fundamentals that I was taught back in college never to do. So the game it's not getting softer. The speed is there. The big hits are there. It's just, we got guys blowing ACLs and Achilles just running down the field. Non-contact soft tissue injuries were less prevalent 10, 15 years ago. We had major injuries, blowing out shoulders and stuff like that. But I've never seen as many blown ACLs and blown Achilles tendons as we've seen over the last couple of years.
Everybody talks about the declining quarterback play is why offenses struggle, but you're arguing, well, there may be some declining in quarterback play, but there's also a major decline in offensive line play.
Yeah, I think there's a major decline in offensive line play. I think the teams that get it, and they have great offensive lines. You can look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They were banged up last year. Lane was banged up, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. You can kind of go down the line, but they got Jeff Stoutland. And when you watch those guys on tape, those guys they're all stepping the same pad level, their landmarks, everything is really dialed in. Now, they didn't have a great year this year, but I think for a lot of these offenses, you got to run the football. That opens everything up. If you don't run the football, these teams are going to sit back in a too high shell, and they are not going to let you throw the ball. You have to be able to, like all the good running teams in the NFL, they have a fullback. They get big bodies on the field. They bring big offensive linemen on the field. They dictate to that defense, hey, you better bring a safety up, or else we are just going to run this thing down your throat. And so, yeah, a lot of good teams need to run the ball to set up the play action. Then you can get into the downfield stuff. So I think it starts with on the offensive line. I think, quarterbacks are getting shelled. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow had a competent offensive line in front of him, he would light it up. So a lot of these guys don't have great offensive lines. They're not running the football. Defenses have adjusted, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to sit back in our high safety shell, and we're not going to let you throw the ball. And then quarterback play is really, really dropped off. We're not seeing a lot of guys throwing for 3,500, 4,000, 4,500 yards anymore. The top guys are, but it all works hand in hand. And again, I think it goes back to off-season training. I think it goes back to training camp. These guys are getting 15 padded practices in before the start of the season. So it takes them 2 or 3 weeks to find that rhythm, where back in the old days, by the time we hit that first game, we've had 30 practices, 4 preseason games. We're ready to roll.
Richie, Randy Moss said this weekend that only players and former players and coaches should vote for the Hall of Fame. I, obviously, being a sports writer and broadcaster, completely disagree with Randy. The players are capable of making the exact same mistakes, compromise decisions as the writers. What do you think of Randy's take?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think the credibility of the Hall of Fame is under fire right now. You don't let Robert Kraft and you don't let Bill Belichick in on the first try. Even MVP voting. We got a guy that's Sam Munson's voting for Justin Herbert for MVP. I mean, that is completely ludicrous. I don't agree. I kind of agree with you. I don't think. It's got to be like some hybrid system. You gotta pick out 10 or 15 guys in the Hall of Fame. Make a Hall of Fame committee, have them work with the broadcasters. We got to figure out a way to get more football minds involved in this. My biggest thing about MVP and All Pro and all those postseason awards, these guys that are voting are local beat writers, right? So they're watching the Cleveland Browns. They're watching the Philadelphia Eagles. Their vision only goes out as far as that team's opponents, right? They're not sitting back like the national guys and watching all the games and going through all the stuff. Now that I'm on the media side of things, I really make it a point. I got to watch everything. And if I don't catch it on Sunday, I'm watching film on it. So there is a big disconnect on the voting process now. I mean, just drawing it up and thinking about it right now. Yeah, I'd love to see a panel of the top Hall of Famers. They talk about the upper room. We got the Hall of Fame, and then the really high standard guys. Guys that watch it every week, and then do it in collaboration with some really good writers, really good guys, really good national guys that kind of see the whole NFL landscape. But yeah, they have some big credibility issues not letting Bill Belichick in, and I think furthermore not letting Robert Kraft in. If you chop up Robert Kraft's career into the decades, you go the 2000s, Hall of Famer, 2010s, Hall of Famer. We're in 2025 season now. We're in 2026. Patriots are back in the Super Bowl. Common denominator, Robert Kraft.
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I don't think it's too much of a curveball. You're saying, hey, let's put some players in. Let's let them evaluate. And I'm even thinking about the all-pro team. Give me an example of a guy during your era of play. I'll make it easy for you. A defensive lineman or a linebacker that never got the kind of all-pro consideration that he should have because the media was too uninformed, the guy wasn't flamboyant enough on the field or whatever. Can you put some meat on the bones of someone, and look, you maybe toot your own horn, I don't know, that didn't get the kind of all-pro consideration that they should have?
Well, I think, I'll give you 2 examples. I'll start with one, and then I'll finish on me. I think a guy like Danielle Hunter, this guy is all world. He's doing it up in Minnesota, and now the last 2 seasons, what they're doing down in Houston, he's starting to get recognition and make Pro Bowls and stuff like that. But this guy is at the top of the list. He should have been at the top of the list for years, right? We're just talking about him now, and this guy's been dominating and signing huge contracts. I don't know what awards he's been given, but I'm telling you it's not enough. To the All-Pro voting, I have a great example of the All-Pro voting. When I got back to Buffalo in 2015, I went to 3 straight Pro Bowls. My 2015, 2016 seasons were tremendous. I mean, I was one of the top offensive linemen in the NFL, but my reputation, and when, obviously the reputation is a big thing, right? But when I think it was 2015, 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, they changed the AP All-Pro team to now on the offensive line. We're not just going to vote offensive line across the board. We're going to vote for a left tackle. We're going to vote for a left guard. We're going to vote for a center. We're going to vote for a right guard, right tackle. And one year I got screwed out of second team all pro because one of the writers, he voted for a right guard at left guard. And he took points away from me. So I get screwed on second team all pro when a writer made a mistake and he voted a right guard as a left guard. And that pissed me off. That infuriates me because that's taking money off my table. That's taking accolades off my resume. That's taking money out of my pocket because, hey, when we go back to renegotiate, okay, not only is he a Pro Bowler, this guy's an all pro. So that really pissed me off. And, you've been in the media forever. I think that there's constant tension between the locker room and the media. And now that I'm on the media side, I kind of understand it. I kind of get it. And, but yeah, those are a couple examples.
Stay there where you're talking about in terms of player to now in the media. What have you learned? How do you see the game different now that you're part of the media? How do you see your relationship with the media different now that you're a part of the media?
Yeah, so I got in the league in 2005, and back then, the only way you can get your news was through the newspaper. And we used to, when you're in the locker room, you're just looking for some credibility. You're just looking for some validation, right? And I've played on teams where the offensive line plays really, really good. 1,000-yard rushers, 1,000-yard receivers, 4,000-yard passing quarterbacks. And the dynamic is, we read these articles and we feel that they have no idea what they're talking about, right? You read the article and you're like, man, this guy is just so far off. He's out of practice every day. He's watching the same games, and this guy is so far off, right? Now that I'm on the media side, I realize the beat writers are really stuck in a really tough position because they have to be political about what they write. They have to stay in the good graces of the organization, but that really pisses off the fans. Beat writers write articles. The fans feel like they're not putting it all together. They're not diving into the conspiracy theories. They're not asking good questions. So the beat writer, this is the biggest revelation I've had. The beat writer is in a really precarious situation. You have the players that are pissed off at them. Then they write an article. They have to be political. They have to be kind to the team. They have to really watch what they say. Then you get the fans on them. So it's this interesting dynamic where you have the national guys and they're all about credibility. They have to break the stories, but not only do they have to break the stories, they have to confirm the information is correct. You have the beat writers who are around every day. You have the players reading those articles. They're getting on the players. The players are pissed at them. They don't ask a question in the press conference that some, social media influencer, some social content guy that's, looking for some conspiracy, looking for some juice. And you kind of just have this tension, and you have the beat writers kind of in the middle of it. I read a lot from Vinny I butcher his name, Bonsignor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And he is really good. He is really dialed. He's good at picking up the undertones of the team. But he is just in a really tough spot. I didn't understand that when I was playing.
Yeah, I go back a little, obviously I was a newspaper writer during a big part of your career, but even further back where, and I wasn't a beat writer. I was a columnist, but everything the Chiefs did, I went to every game, home and road, and my brand was writing about the Chiefs. But I was a columnist, so I got to write my opinions. And the proper scenario is you have a columnist that writes opinions and is kind of the bad guy, which leaves the beat writer to kind of be the good guy. But a lot of times that balance isn't there because, the columnist, he's afraid to say anything as well. Because again, there's Richie Incognitos and Derek Thomases in the locker room and guys that are, stronger and faster, younger, and little bit more violent than the average beat writer. And so guys are scared. I mean, they're scared. But even as a former player, now that you're in this podcast space, and it's not that you operate out of fear, but you still want to be fair. You don't want to cost people money. You don't want to point out some things because you want to be loyal to the player and because you once were a player. How do you manage that?
The big thing that I've tried to convey is credibility, right? I'm in the debate stage right now. I'm in the hot takes. I'm with Skip over at the Arena Gridiron, and we're talking hot topics. We're talking players, storylines, stuff like that. And my thing is, I try and kind of weave it all in, right? Like, you have to be kind to the players, you have to be cognizant of the storylines, but I want to be credible. What I want to do is I want to educate the fans. I want to bring the fans along and weave them along all throughout the season, dropping nuggets, dropping hints. Hey, this is what you should watch in the game. And what I want my fans to come away with is kind of seeing the game through my eyes. I say something on the show Monday, Tuesday, Friday. I want fans to see that on Sunday and be like, oh, wow, I heard Richie say that. That's okay. That's going to keep me tuning back in. My good friend Skip Bayless, your good friend Skip Bayless, he had to eat some crow this week because he's been all over Sam Darnold in the Seattle Seahawks. He would not give them credit. He was calling them Sam Darnold for making turnovers and stuff like that. Where I'm trying to gain credibility. I'm trying to talk about how good the Seattle Seahawks are playing. I'm trying to talk about the offensive line. I'm trying to talk about the defense. I'm like, hey, this is a new day and age where quarterbacks, first round quarterbacks, many of them don't work out on the first teams. Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. We got to give guys a shot to prove themselves. So the big thing for me is, I'm finding this fine line between hot takes and being a football analyst. And I try and just be as credible as possible. I try and bring stories from my experience, and I try and be a journalist. I'm reaching out to people. I'm talking with local writers. I'm talking with national guys, and I'm trying to craft my stories and my analysis to be credible. I want my fans. I don't want to alienate fan bases. I want to bring fan bases in. I want to talk guys up. And when it is time to tear guys down, I was really hard on Mike McDaniel in Miami this year. He's not a leader of men. Really hard on Chip Kelly out in Las Vegas because they were running a BS offense and they looked terrible. And, Chip thinks he's smarter than everybody, and it looked really bad. So, yeah, I think as long as you are credible throughout the season, then when it comes time to drop the hot takes, the content takes care of itself because you're coming at it as a football analyst.
Richie, people from the outside would think, because you were such a controversial player and such a nasty physical player on the field, I think most people would think like Richie's going to be like the Charles Barkley of football. But when they actually get to know you and ever have private conversations with you, or anybody it's like, this guy's a high-end intellectual. And it's kind of off-putting or just surprising. Like, no, Richie's actually a guy that's probably read a lot of books and has thoughts about things you'd have no idea. And so being the Charles Barkley of football probably doesn't fit your personality.
Yeah, I think I've been misunderstood. Obviously, I had the bullying incident in Miami, and that was nasty. It was a bunch of crazy words. It was mischaracterized, and we got some big things coming on that front. But yeah, I do it now as an analyst. I read a headline and I write a guy off. And I think, when that whole bullying thing went down, it was not very palatable. And I think a lot of people wrote me off. And I came back. I was able to reestablish myself, which was a huge feat. I was out of the league in 2014, come back in 2015, make 3 Pro Bowls in a row, kind of flame out again, have some mental health issues, come back with the Raiders, have another Pro Bowl type season, stick around with the Raiders, mentor a lot of guys. So I've tried my entire life to differentiate myself from the guy on the field. And now that I'm 5 years removed and life has calmed down now, I think I could just convey that every day by my character, showing up, being a good dude, being positive. I like to think I'm smart, playing offensive line, and you have to be a certain level of disciplined and smart. And, I am well-spoken, I am well-read. And that's what I want people to see. I want them to judge me as who I am today. I've come a long way. I've done a lot of work on myself. I've learned a lot. For about 5 years after I retired, I just traveled the world, played golf, and got in the normal paces of life. And one thing I realized is, 99% of the world is not waking up, listening to Jocko videos, going to crush the weight room at 7:30 a.m. And when I was playing, I was never able to kind of turn it off. That maniac, that madman that you saw on Sundays, I was like that in the spring. I was like that when I was starting my training back in February. You had to attack every day and just be a psychopath. And I had a ton of success. I made a ton of money. I mentored a lot of guys. And I think the people that know me love me. And I think the people that slam the door shut after the bullying incident, they'll never change their mind about me. So I just try and show up, be consistent, show my passion for football, and kind of let people connect the dots.
So how is your mental health now, 5 years after football? Is it still something you struggle with, or has this, because when I was sitting there listening to it, it's like, man, this guy's they call him a method actor or a character actor. Daniel Day-Lewis, like some people they live that character off camera. It's like for 6 months, I'm this character that I'm playing in a movie or a TV show. And that sounds like how you approach football, and it took you someplace that could have got you in a lot of problems. But how are you now?
Yeah, I was a method actor. I was a method actor, except I wouldn't put it down in between seasons. I was a full-blown psychopath all the way through. But yeah, mental health, I struggled with it my entire life. And it was really kind of like a ghost in a closet. It would pop out at all these weird times, and I had a lot of weird just where I would just be off my fucking rocker. And when I got to the end of my playing career, I discovered that I had a traumatic brain injury from years past, I think from my adolescence, that would trigger these episodes. And we tried to figure it out for so long because, we would get through the season. I'd be out traveling, partying, hanging out, living a good life. And then boom, this ghost would come out of the closet. And then 2 or 3 months, it was really scary. I'm a big man. I'm tatted up. I'm passionate. And when I used to go off a little bit, it was a very scary deal. So learning that I had the traumatic brain injury and then working to overcome that, mental health has been great for me. I've been rock solid for the last 5 years. I got a great team around me. I'm doing everything right, from medication to therapy to hyperbaric oxygen chambers to IVs. And I'm really just trying to take care of my brain. And, that's being consistent every day. That's being consistent with the work that I'm doing to protect my brain and to get people to know me and accept me in the media. It's being consistent every day. And I think that's why people love me. I'm consistent. I got the way I live my life, but I live that life every day. So, yeah, the last 5 years have been really good, man. I struggled with my entire life. And then we finally figured out what the root cause of the problem was. And then we were able to, fight it because it was unknown for 15 years.
So when you see, I think, is it James Pierce? Yeah, when you see James Pierce in the news, when you see Puka Nacua in the news, what does Richie Incognito, where do you go with that? What pops up in your head watching these guys struggle?
Yeah, Puka, it's an interesting situation because I believe at his core, he's a good dude. He's just a young guy. And you have to understand that these athletes are motivated differently now. When I came in the NFL, it was shut up, rookie, work. You can talk in your third and fourth year after you started a bunch of games. Now these kids are thrown in the spotlight and it's like, oh, I want to do streaming with this guy. I want to do this. And everybody is TMZ nowadays. Back in the day when you and I were running hot, you'd go outside the club and TMZ was outside the club. These kids need to understand everybody with a cell phone in their pocket is TMZ. So I think Sean McVay is the perfect guy for Puka. After all the controversy that happened during the season, he put his arm around him and he said, listen, he's young. He's going to learn. Puka needs to grow up. Puka needs to be, you have to come to the realization that this is hurting the brand. This is going to come up in the next contract negotiation. I'd love for someone to big brother him and say, man, we gotta calm it down. We got to get you on the right path. You are going to be a hell of a ball player in this league forever. I want to see you make a lot of money. Get your shit together. With James Pierce, man, it's crazy because coming out in the draft last year, all you heard about the character concerns, and none of us really heard what the actual character concerns were. I think there is probably a select few in the media that have detailed stories about why everybody was talking about character concerns. And then you have this situation pop up where this kid's in San Francisco. He's second in voting for defensive rookie of the year, and he flies across country, and then this situation goes down. I think Puka's situation and this James Pierce situation couldn't be more different. This kid, James Pierce, needs a lot of help. He needs a lot of support. And as an athlete, you build yourself up to your persona and what you think it looks like and how you think you should act. And now you get yourself into this situation, and it's like, we need a full-blown mental makeover. I mean, we need to go in and burn this down to the ground, build a foundation, and then build it up from there. And I hope James Pierce figures it out. I hope that he has some good people in his life that can help guide him. And I hope he gets another opportunity to play, because the kid is super talented. But what he pulled down there in Miami was deeply disturbing. And I think the Atlanta Falcons and James Pierce's family and friends really need to work with him and get him to realize what a great opportunity you have in front of you to play in the NFL.
Richie, I'm gonna get you out of here, but I want to tell you a final story and just kind of get your reaction to it. I've been this Hall of Fame debate and discussion and controversy made me start watching more in the past couple of weeks, watching more historical stuff about the NFL. And so late at night, I'm watching stuff about the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's like, I grew up watching them, but I was a little kid. And again, the world was much bigger then. You know, there was no internet. And so you couldn't really, you'd hear the national stories about the Steelers, but the details you never knew. And so I'm watching this stuff about the Steelers, and they focus in on Mean Joe Green. And I knew as a kid they called him Mean Joe Green, but I really didn't know why. And in this documentary, they start, I think in 1970 or 1969, they draft him, and this dude was the biggest raging lunatic on the football field. They started showing clips of him bullying players and doing all kinds of dirty stuff after the play, during the play, just trying to destroy people. And then Joe Green, as an adult, he's talking about who he used to be and just the problems he had and how angry he was about. Early on, they were losing, and he just wanted to win, and he didn't. And Chuck Noll, he talked about how Chuck Noll treated him, and I don't understand why they didn't get rid of me. And then you fast forward, Joe Green goes on to become one of the greatest NFL players of all time, but also one of the most beloved. It's like he becomes this wise person that everyone kind of turns to. He's soft-spoken, and watching that, and I think I just watched this a couple of days ago, it made me think of like, man, this game really can transform you in a positive way if people are patient, and we need to be careful about giving up on people. And I'm going to land the plane and let you react, but I remember 5-6 years ago when Myles Garrett beat Mason Rudolph over the head with a helmet. And I can remember thinking like, man, they should suspend him. He should never play again. He should blah, blah, blah. And now we fast forward. Myles Garrett has turned into one of the most likable guys in the NFL, one of the most respected. And I'm like, he's this version, this generation's Mean Joe Green. But this game does give guys that don't know what to do with all their aggression, it gives them a place to get that out. And if you're patient with them and you can draw something out, and they will become a better person. And so I think that applies to you. I think it applies to Myles Garrett. And as crazy it sounds, it may apply to James Pierce. Let's hope and pray. But anyway, your reaction to that, and then I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting talking about guys back in the day, especially back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They were kind of, I don't want to say protected, but there was a veil that you can only see in through a beat writer. You weren't watching replays of games. You weren't seeing, if it wasn't caught on the camera on the TV, all that dirty stuff was awesome. It was allowed to go down. Now we have 200 angles of it. Everybody on Twitter is talking about it. It's the age of information has really transformed the game and given fans inside access that wasn't there back in the day. And we were able to build these guys up to be heroes. And you look at Michael Jordan, there was a ton of stuff going on off the basketball court. And if he was going through his heyday in the 2010s, 2020s, we would know a lot more about Jordon. And I think he's one of my favorite athletes ever, but there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. The beautiful thing about playing in the NFL and the beautiful thing about giving this platform is you can always reinvent yourself. If you're a great player, you play with passion, you're a good guy in the locker room, teammates play hard for you, you have a shot. It's really it's about growing up. It's about accepting help. And that, as a player, that's the hardest thing. It's like, going to somebody you confide in and be like, hey, I'm messed up, man. I'm all messed up. And, now at 42, I understand that I got a phone full of people that I can call. But when you're 21, 22, 23 years old and you're battling it out, you're dogging it out, you're trying to get some recognition, you're trying to get paid, you're literally in the fight, and it feels so isolating at times because you don't know who you're fighting. You're fighting the coaching staff that doesn't like you, or you're fighting the front office that won't attach a good value to you and give you money. You're fighting the referees during the game. You're fighting the beat reporters. You're fighting the fans. You're in this constant state of tension. At least I know I was. But the beautiful thing about the game is it's going to keep giving you a platform. And like I said before, if you're a good guy, your teammates love you, your coaches love you, you play hard, we can work with that because we all make mistakes, right? But the issue about our mistakes are they make the front page. They make Twitter. They make it on TikTok. And, I think if you're able and you're willing to reinvent yourself and you're able to really take a deep dive on what makes you tick, what motivates you, figuring, it's getting over the hump. It's growing up. This game is going to keep continuing to give you a platform to learn and grow. And I think guys don't understand how precious this opportunity is. You have to think as an athlete. I've always been the best. I was the best offensive lineman in the state of Arizona. I go to college, All-American. Great player. You get to the NFL. You're a great player. You're a starter. You're a Pro Bowl. You're doing all these great things, and we've been put on a pedestal. And guys don't cherish that enough. Guys don't understand that you are one mistake away from being out of the league, especially guys who aren't starters. But I think that is the beautiful thing about this game is you can see guys grow, you could see guys mature, you could see guys overcome a lot of stuff. And that's what really builds you up in fans' hearts. This guy was a shithead his rookie year and his second year, but hey, look at it. Myles Garrett, third, fourth, fifth year. This guy's Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's doing so much good for the community. He's really grown. So, there's definitely an opportunity for James Pierce, and it's a small window, but he's a great player. He's gonna get another opportunity, probably a hefty suspension. And I think also another thing we got to talk about is when guys come up, we have guys, you come up and you're the best, you're put on the pedestal, and now they throw all this money at you. And that is like throwing gas on a fire. It is that money, it changes you. Even if it says, I came from nothing, I'm going back to nothing, it ain't going to change me. It changes you, and it needs to change you. It needs to change your line of thinking. It needs to change who you have around you, who you're leaning on. It really does need recognition, but you're fighting that money. And you're fighting the people around you, and you're fighting your past. And I preach to guys, you have to grow up. You have to start thinking differently because the money is different and it has to change you.
Richie, thank you so much for taking the time. Tell Skip Bayless hello, and I mean that sincerely. Tell Gilbert Arenas, all those guys, hello. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I'll pass along your hellos to the crew, and thanks for having me. All
right. That was Richie Incognito. When we come back, and if we can't, I need about 90 seconds here. I got to take, man, this. I'm rocking through it. I'm rocking it out, but wow, I'm playing. I don't think this is my Michael Jordan flu game. I just got the flu. I don't know. But anyway, when we come back, Jay Skapinac and Steve Kim, and I may need like 2 minutes here, Luke, because I got to go to the bathroom. We'll do that next.
These words are our religion, no regrets in our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
All right, welcome back. Time for some Steve Kim and Jay Skapinac, the Batman and Robin of sports, the Korean Cosell, and the biggest LeBron James hater perhaps in all of these internets. Guys, we're going to start with some football. We're going to start with some gossip. Or Jordon Hudson, Bill Belichick's girlfriend. She went to a North Carolina basketball game with a T-shirt mocking Robert Kraft, referencing the massage parlor where Robert Kraft had got a happy ending. Steve, should Bill Belichick have objected here, or is he letting Jordon Hudson make it very clear that he blames Robert Kraft for not getting into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think that much is clear. That's an endorsement of it. But come on, guys. You think he has any say over what Jordon does? I think it's been clear he hasn't been in charge of that from the very beginning. I think it's going to be interesting next year. Let's say there was that 1 year penance both Belichick and Kraft have to pay. There is still the possibility. So the 1 year penalty box is over, right? They still might get in next year together. That is going to be a fascinating story if you care about this type of stuff.
Yeah, I do think having what they just experienced, I bet Bob Kraft is trying to make peace at this point. Seriously, don't you? I don't think this has worked out well for Bob Kraft.
Well, one thing about Jordon, she's bringing out a side, not that Belichick was involved, but do I believe that she would have worn that shirt if Belichick would have said, honey, maybe not now? There's no doubt about it. Belichick is a historian. I believe it was important for him to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He does care about that stuff. Him getting snubbed and not becoming a first ballot Hall of Fame coach actually does really rip at him a little bit. And this is his way of saying, look, I'm taking notes. I know who did this. It is duly noted.
Scap, you're married. You got any sympathy here for Belichick? Should he control his sugar baby a little better than this?
Well, I have no control or voice in any way, shape, or form over my wife, so I guess I can sympathize with Billy on that regard. But this is just a kind of a bad look. There are other ways that they could have taken a shot, I feel like, at Kraft, rather than a shirt alluding to or referencing to the massage parlor. Because, guys, isn't it? I mean, we can all agree.
If you're going to take a shot, you might as well take one that lands, Scap.
But I'm saying, Belichick is paying for what's going on in the little relationship he has with Jordon as well. He's just making a longer-term investment and getting more like punch for his dollar, I suppose. But look, I don't think that's a virtuous relationship. We can all agree on that, right?
I tend to agree with you, but I think Steve has a different take. Steve, I think, endorses
No, I don't endorse it, but one thing about Belichick, he was never afraid to go to a youth movement. I mean, look, I'll say this. Just because something is legal doesn't necessarily make it right. And what I said throughout this whole process, this saga, is that I find that the greatest irony is that the coach who stressed no distractions, at least for the first year at UNC, became the biggest distraction of any coach in college football by a good amount.
Scap, did you want to finish your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing. To the best of my knowledge, this wasn't Kraft's first crack at getting in. Is that right?
No, it was not his first crack. No.
Right. So
maybe his 13th or 12th or something.
Right. So I don't think necessarily. Look, I think Belichick does get in after the 1 year slap on the wrist. But there is nothing that would indicate, in my estimation, that Kraft is going to get in next year, particularly if they do put Belichick in. I don't think that the voters will want to send both of them in the same year. So unfortunately, that would be a great storyline, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I actually do think Kraft is going to go in because I think his resume is the equal, if not better, than Bill Belichick's. And so, yeah, just as an owner, how can you get a better resume than, they just, wasn't that their 11th, 12th Super Bowl they just qualified for under Bob Kraft? So, I think Kraft goes in and I think Belichick goes in. What my fear is that they're once again, Tony Dungy's going to win out here, that their solution is going to be just let everybody in. Because that was all Tony Dungy's crying about is like, man, we need all this person and that person and L.C. Greenwood and this person, Ken Anderson. They're all Hall of Famers. And so their solution is never, hey, let's make the tough decision. Let's keep some people out. Their solution is always, let's just let more people in. And I'll say this respectfully. It's just like when you're a one Super Bowl win coach that's in the Hall of Fame, you want more people in. You want people that borderline Hall of Famers. You want more of them in because, that upper room, Dion and these guys looking down on you, you want more people on your side.
Boy, Jason, you still like Dungy, right? Just want to make that clear because you made that very clear. Yeah, you still respect Dungy.
I still respect him like Tony Dungy. I just got some criticisms.
Just want to make sure. Still like respect.
Scap, you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like Dungy as well, but I think he is borderline Hall of Fame. I don't necessarily think if I had a vote that I would vote him in, and I like that. I like it being the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good. So I'm behind. Eli Manning, I believe, actually just missed out for his second consecutive chance of eligibility now at this point. I like that because, look, Eli won 2 Super Bowls. He has 2 marquee Super Bowl wins at that because they beat the Patriots. One of those was the undefeated Patriots team that they beat. So he has some huge moments, but was Eli Manning ever a top 5 quarterback ever in his 19-year playing career? He wasn't. Therefore, to me, if you're not a top 5 positional player at your time that you've played in, are you really a Hall of Famer? To me, the answer is no.
Yeah, I'm with Scap here. You look at the overall numbers, and there's just too many clunkers and too many years where I thought Eli was very mediocre to average. Now, he's going to get the New York bump. He's going to get the 2 Lombardi Trophy bump. But, to Scap's point, winning 2 Super Bowls as a quarterback is automatic entry into Canton. Well, right after Eli, you better call up Jim Plunkett.
Guys, I want to move on while we're talking about Super Bowl. Obviously, a lot of controversy about the Super Bowl halftime and Bad Bunny and the counter event by Kid Rock. So the discussion is turned to next year already in terms of who should be the Super Bowl halftime performer. I think the NFL should target Morgan Wallen. That would be the play I would make, but it seems unlikely. Who should be the performer for next year's Super Bowl? Who's your favorite?
Are you asking who it should be, or who do we think, or who do we think the NFL will do? Who do we want to see it get?
Both. Answer both.
Look, I'm just going to jump over you, Steve. I don't know who he was going to, but I'm going to take this because I feel pretty strongly about this. Okay, as a guy who's a rock fan through and through, classic rock and then alternative rock again in the 90s. The Red Hot Chili Peppers are Los Angeles, okay? The Super Bowl next year is in LA. The Chili Peppers were formed in LA in 1983. They are rock and roll royalty. They're in the Hall of Fame. I believe they went in 2012. Half of their freaking catalog is a love letter to Los Angeles. Like, they need to be involved in some way. I was at Kobe Bryant's final game that he played ever, where he scored 60 points against Utah in Staples Center. Flea played the national anthem. We need to have the Red Hot Chili Peppers involved in some way for some kind of homage to Los Angeles, with Los Angeles being the host city. Will it happen? Unequivocally and absolutely not, of course, because the NFL doesn't do what they should do. They just do this. They make the stupid play. So I'll just say who I think it might be. Look, Tay-Tay. I don't know how Taylor Swift has not been included in this yet. She has brought in a whole new audience of people into the NFL with the exposure that she's brought, since she is now engaged to like a top 3 all-time tight end in NFL history in Kelsey. Most casual observers or NFL fans can't stand her, hate the proliferation of Taylor Swift cutaways to the box every game she's at. But the NFL isn't paying attention to what their fans want. So I don't know how Taylor has not. Look, she's a very popular artist. She's one of the top, 5 most popular artists in the world. And hey, bonus, she at least actually speaks English too. So maybe that would somehow throw a bone to some of the casual football fans. So my betting money would be on Taylor Swift. Steve?
All right, so Morgan Wallen is a white guy, right?
Yes.
Okay, is Jay-Z still involved in this whole process next year? No, not happening then. And he's out. He's out. I didn't realize. So the Super Bowl's back at SoFi. Jason, wasn't it there just 3 years ago?
Seems like it. Yeah.
All right, so the rotation's quick. All right. What I think they're going to do, based on what they did back in 2022, that's when the Rams and Bengals played, right? They're going to go with whoever is still remaining alive in the NWA sphere. Ice Cube, The Game. You know what they're going to do? They're going to urban it up. They're going to do that whole thing. Basically, what we saw in 2022, they'll do another version of it. Now, here's what I would do. I'd go 2 ways. Just Steve Kim, if I was in charge of this. I listened to a lot of Latin freestyle. It was the soundtrack of Montebello High School. So I'm talking Stevie B, Lisa, Expose, Cover Girls, Trenier. That's not happening either. So here's what I would do. I would lean in to a little bit of technology because it's been done before. And I want to bring everybody in, and it would feature minorities. Do holograms of Michael Jackson and Prince. They did that with Tupac at a concert. Everyone went nuts. Michael Jackson and Prince. Bring both worlds together.
I think after this year, and I'm praying for these bad ratings to come in, they're going to actually do something that centers someone who can actually sing. And that's what, and again, I told you I would prefer Morgan Wallen, but the play the NFL might make is Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton has one of the best voices in all of music. He would actually perform for the audience in the stadium, which I think we've gone over the top while they shoot these music videos at halftime of the Super Bowl. People have shown, you've seen the videos, like the people in the actual stadium had no idea what was going on. The set and all this other stuff, that wasn't a performance for the audience in the stadium. They need someone who can appeal to the audience in the stadium. Maybe they do try Taylor Swift, but again, if they went with someone like Ice Cube, Steve, after they rolled out all these rappers, I think it only fuels the TPUSA event if they go rap again. And so I don't think they can do that. Scap, I got to ask you a follow-up question to something you said that was fascinating to me. Did you say you were at Kobe's 60-point game, his final game of his career?
That's right, Jason. I was there. And real quick, let me just lace this on you guys. I want you to put your collective minds and think how many people can say this. I was at Michael Jordan's last game ever played, Kobe Bryant's last game ever played, and Tom Brady's last game ever played. I was physically present in all 3 of those venues. How many people on earth do you think can make that claim?
Not many, particularly there's some sports writers that can, I'm sure, some sports broadcasters. But what? How did you get tickets to Kobe's last game? Well, I just want to start there.
Money talks, Jason. You're willing to, if you're willing to dole it out, you could get a seat in that building. It wasn't necessarily a great seat because I was actually in New Orleans 3 days earlier, like right behind the Lakers bench on the floor. And I paid twice as much for those tickets to get a mediocre seat in the building.
Whoa. Hold on. So you went on tour with Kobe at the end? You were just going to games? You're that much of a I thought there were some LeBron sexuals. We got a Kobe sexual on this. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah, Jason. I went to probably 8 to 10 of Kobe's last games throughout the United States in his last season, yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction right now. Scat will not be at LeBron's last game. That's a prediction I'm going to make, Kimsterdamus. One of the greatest moments ever of Jason Whitlock's career that absolutely just pissed off people, P-I-S-T, people off. So Kobe scores that 60. Everyone thinks it's a joyous moment. But Jason Buzzkill comes on, and I think you were with Cowherd, and you said, I want to say something.
I hosted Cowherd's show that day.
Right.
And did the whole show on Kobe's selfish 60-point game. Scap, were you aware of that? Are you aware of that show I did?
I am aware. Jason, I know you're an anti-Kobe guy. We've never really clashed on it. But maybe one of these days, Jason, you and I could have like a special. Maybe I'll come to studio and you and I could have like a 60-minute special like Kobe debate.
Oh, that'll be like Chad O. Jackson against our guy Delano about Martin Luther King. But Jason, can I admit something? As I'm listening to that way back, and I believe it was 2016, a lot of what you said, I actually agreed with. Because when I'm watching this game and Kobe's just chucking up shots, I know they made a comeback against the Utah Jazz. There was a part of me that said, all right, let's get this over with because this is factual, and I get it, he was injured. And I think he's the second most iconic Laker ever behind Magic. But again, that's my age. I'm a little older than you, Scap. But the last 3 years of Kobe being Bryant as a Laker fan were the worst stretch we ever had as a franchise in L.A., and it was torturous. I think some of us did not want to admit it. I would, and I'd get into trouble. We all wanted to turn the page. So while everyone is trying to get at Whitlock, there's a part of me that was saying, yeah, you ain't wrong. You weren't wrong completely.
So I'm trying to figure out, did you hate me back then, Scap?
No, I never hated you, Whitlock. I just disagreed with you on your Kobe stance, but I agree with you primarily on all of your other takes. So it's a balance. It's a sliding scale.
If I were buying tickets traveling around with Kobe Bryant, I would have hated me. It's like, you know how much money I spent to go see this 60-point game, and now Whitlock's calling it a fugazi and criticizing my guy. I would have been upset, but you're a better man than me. Scap, let's stay with the NBA. LeBron James, do we have? Yeah, let's play the clip. LeBron James says the Lakers aren't a championship caliber team. Duh. Let's play the clip.
LeBron, they're the best team in the league, and they're a good measuring stick when you play them. Where are you seeing the gaps between like where they're at and the things they do well consistently versus like kind of the build that you guys are trying to put together?
You want me to compare us to them?
No, I want to know where you think though that like sort of as this team is on its like.
That's a championship team right there. We're not. So I don't understand.
What are the biggest things you think that are keeping this team as right now?
We can't sustain energy and effort for 48 minutes, and they can. That's why they won a championship.
Scap, your reaction to that?
Well, look, he's not saying anything that's untrue, but I feel like it's coming at a really odd time. It's a game where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't play for Oklahoma City, fine, but basically their entire roster did play other than SGA. The Lakers were without Luka Doncic, meanwhile, so that essentially balanced the absence of SGA off. And the Lakers, I still thought they were going to get absolutely rolled in that game. They were up by 1 halfway through the fourth quarter. It was a 3-point game with a minute and a half left in the game. So that's a game that was highly competitive, that through stretches, I watched the whole game. Through stretches, I thought like the Lakers were going to win that game or maybe even run away with it. They started the third quarter on like a 26-10 run when they came out of the locker room. So it's just a bizarre moment to make that claim and to kind of look a little pouty in that post-game press conference. I don't know. The guy, look, he's just a terrible leader, ultimately. The guy who's praised, like, essentially throughout his entire career for his great leadership, his great floor rising, and his great basketball IQ and acumen. Like, he's just an awful leader. I mean, maybe he could have said, hey, I was 2 of 6 in that fourth quarter because he said we didn't make our shots down the stretch. We had great looks from 3. We didn't make them. No, you, LeBron, you were 2 of 6 in the fourth quarter. You were 0 of 2 from the three-point line, 0 of 2 from the free throw line. Like maybe some accountability. I mean, the Nuggets took one on the chin last night. Dreadful loss. One of the worst losses I've seen in weeks. And it seems like the Nuggets do that at least once a month. And Jokic in his post-game press conference was, we hate the loss. We hate losing in general, but like we can build off of it. We're learning things. Like we can take this and learn from it. Like what great marquee all-time players do you guys know of that sits up and says, well, let's phone it in on this season. We can't compete with any of these upper echelon teams. Why am I even playing out here right now? Like I guess I could strain myself to stat pad my box scores, but other than that, don't expect too much, guys, because we're not a championship team. It's just odd messaging from him.
Steve?
Like I said, Scat will not be at LeBron's last game. That would have been funny, Jason. We talk about this guy a lot. If TJ Simers was the reporter, I can just imagine. So you're saying that that the team is old and slow and has too many defensive liabilities. Like, get into that, LeBron. So you're saying the team needs to get younger. Like, who are you really pointing at? Do you think there's nepotism on this team? A lot of what LeBron said is true. I don't think anyone was expecting a victory championship parade down Figueroa this year. The Lakers are what they are. But to what Scap said, it almost seems like he's saying, I'm just here doing a job. I'm not part of the problem. Everyone else failed me. The organization failed me. Let's just get through this. That's what it seemed like. And a lot of that is true. I still believe the greatest gift the Lakers can give themselves and LeBron is to find a suitable trade partner, and let's go on separately with the rest of our lives.
Do you think LeBron plays next year, Steve?
Yes.
Scap?
Yeah, he's given no indication this is his last year, right, Scap? Anything like that?
I mean, there's been some cryptic messaging, but that's just LeBron, like, trying to, get as much attention on him as possible. He's got that stupid little patch thing that he's wearing on his jersey. But I think, look, if I were a betting man, I would put lots of money on the fact that LeBron James is going to play next season. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he will, and it definitely will not be with the LA Lakers. But Steve, a trade, no way. I mean, the trade deadline's passed 5 days ago. So LeBron, it is what it is. Like, this is the team moving forward through the playoffs.
Guys, I want to wrap on this note, headed back to the National Football League. Aaron Rodgers has spoken to Mike McCarthy about the potential of returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Scap, as the big Pittsburgh Steeler fan on the show, from Pittsburgh. Your thoughts here, Aaron Rodgers returning to the Steelers?
Look, while I may detest this inept organization right now, or I guess I should say the inept front office that is running, and the inept ownership, let's not forget about Art Rooney II. I do, though, have the utmost respect for Aaron Rodgers. At this stage of his career, though, it's over. He's not a guy that's going to carry a team to the next level. I wouldn't expect them to win a single playoff game if he does return next season. Look, and there's really no good answers necessarily. I think Tua's on the block in Miami. I hear Kyler Murray's on the block in Arizona. I'm sure that the Steelers are going to be involved in both of those markets if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back. Look, if it were me, I'm kicking the old tires on Mac Jones. I'm reaching out to the 49ers. Now, there's a report that the 49ers aren't interested in trading him. That just means that they aren't getting enough collateral return yet. There's always a price for something. And if the Steelers are willing to pay a high enough price, I think they could get Mac Jones. And let's not discount what a season in San Francisco can do for a failed former first-round pick like Mac Jones. Sam Darnold spent a year in San Francisco under Kyle Shanahan. Then he went and did what he did in Minnesota last year. And then this year, of course, he did what he did in Seattle and won a Super Bowl. So I'm trying to pull away Mac Jones if it's me, if it's Pittsburgh. But they're not going to do that, obviously. First play is going to be to try to get Aaron Rodgers. And then secondarily, please no. I can already smell the Kyler Murray trade package coming down my way. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen either. But Jason, I wouldn't put anything past this organization. They stink.
The Rooney family stinks.
Stink.
Very harsh words from a harsh man, Jay Skapinac. Steve, Aaron Rodgers returning to Pittsburgh. Thumbs
well,
up,
in the
thumbs
immortal
down.
words of Brian Billick, one time he said about the flawed instant replay rule. This is like 20 years ago. It's time to blow the whole thing up. So you got rid of the coach that Skap loved and Tomlin, right? Well, if you bring back Aaron Rodgers, now you're going back to being half pregnant. If you're going to blow the whole thing up, like when it comes to the draft day, I would look at some of those bigger name defensive parts on the Steelers and I would try to raffle them off. You got to actually tell your new coach, don't worry about winning 5 games this year. We'll sacrifice the first year because the worst thing you can be in football, in my view, is a perennial 9 to 10 win team. Because short of having a magical wild card run, which is very improbable, it happens once a decade, right? You're stuck in that abyss of mediocrity. It is time for the Steelers to have a real plan for the future. And if you bring back Aaron Rodgers, you're getting a serviceable older guy, but you're not getting the quarterback of the future.
Gentlemen, thank you. Great job. We'll see you next time. That's it, and that's all from us here at Fearless today. We'll see you tomorrow.